Welcome to this special edition of Be Less Stupid. In just a moment, I'm going to tell you who I'm going to vote for in the Super Tuesday primary. And if you're persuaded by my reasoning, perhaps you'll consider supporting this candidate as well. But first, 25 years ago, Bernie Sanders was the mayor of Burlington, Vermont. I thought it was interesting that the town where I was in college had a socialist mayor. I liked that he had a set of principles, and he was prepared to stick by them, regardless of whether or not they were popular or if they would hurt him politically. When Bernie got elected to the Senate, I was like, oh my God, I've been with this guy for years. I also liked that he was Jewish. He's from Brooklyn, just like my dad. They're the same age. When Bernie ran for president, I made my first political donation ever. I sent him $200. And then like 2 weeks later, the check was returned to me with a note from Bernie that said, thank you, but that he was not accepting money from corporations. I had stupidly written the check from my corporate account instead of my personal one. And look, it was at that moment that I said to myself, this is my guy. I like this guy. He's honest. But perhaps even more so than that, he had a vision for the world that aligned in many ways with my own. He talked about equality for all. He talked about supporting a woman's right to choose. He talked about legalizing marriage for everyone and making sure that everyone could afford health care, not just the rich. These are the things that I believe. I liked that there was a zealous advocate for issues that I cared about who didn't seem to care that they were politically divisive. He had an internal compass, things that he valued, things that he thought were right and wrong. And it didn't appear that he was going to alter his thinking in order to keep his job or stay popular, the way nearly every other politician does. However, when Bernie started to run for president against Hillary Clinton, I discovered that he felt very passionately about a bunch of things that I don't. Look, I'm a liberal, yes, on every social issue that I can think of, but I don't think that asking Americans individually to make changes in their diet or to make sacrifices or to eat less meat is going to do anything to fight climate change. Yes, I agree that climate change is real, but America is responsible for just 15% of the world's carbon emissions. Even if every American stopped creating carbon dioxide, the problem remains 85% unsolved. Climate change is a problem that governments must prioritize. It's not a problem that will be solved by individuals buying a Prius and putting solar panels on the roofs of their homes. Like Bernie, I also want to see every American have access to affordable health care. Let me repeat that. I want everyone to have access to affordable health care. Only here's the thing. Medicare for all creates nearly as many problems as it attempts to solve. Look, first, it is unrealistic to think that you can change a 100-year-old American healthcare system 25% a year for 4 years. That's first. Second, there is a psychological thing that scientists are well aware of, where people value something that they have more than they value that same thing and they don't have it. Let me give you an example. You know how angry gun owners are when liberals talk about taking away guns? That feeling of keeping what you have is the way many people feel about their doctors. Bernie's plan either takes away your choice or has the appearance of taking away your choice, and that is a huge problem. Also, if you take the insurance companies out of the process, there is going to be 1 million insurance agents who are unemployed. And there's the issue of wait times to see a doctor, which will increase in some cases dramatically depending on your medical issue. And Bernie is not being upfront about that, not to mention what it's going to cost. I would support Medicare for all if it had a more realistic implementation goal. Another issue that Bernie supports, where we disagree, is aid to the Palestinians. He wants to take some of the money that the U.S. gives to Israel for aid and military and give it to support humanitarian efforts in the West Bank and in the Gaza Strip. That is a thing I do not support. I'm not against humanitarian aid to a struggling population, but I would first like to see a concerted effort on the part of the Palestinians to do three things. Invest in their own community, build schools and roads. They must stop blowing up Jews in Israel, and they must rein in the radicals from the PLO and Hamas. Look, here's the thing. If the Palestinians were to stop killing Jews in Israel, there would be peace in the region. However, if the Israelis put down their weapons, the PLO and Hamas would launch an offensive to march the Jews into the sea. And look, I am not so naive as to think that I have to agree with every position a candidate takes in order to support them. I could live with these policy differences in an alternate universe. However, when you add them up, and when you add that Trump and Fox and Breitbart and the Daily Wire are going to start chanting that he's a dangerous socialist, they're going to turn their rhetoric machine up to 11. It's going to make it difficult to accomplish the Democrats' number one goal, which is to get rid of the most cruel, corrupt, and criminal president in American history. Look, the voters that the Democrats need the most, the 80,000 voters in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, I fear, will be swayed by Trump's bullshit that Bernie is a secret communist. Those voters are going to think to themselves, my dad fought the commies in World War II, and now you want me to make a commie the president of the United States? No way! And that, my friends, is the ball game. It is over. The socialist smear is too easy, and it will be too effective. And I think the argument that America already has some socialist programs, like the police department and the fire department and the post office, is not nearly persuasive enough in the face of Trump's lies and attacks about poverty and corruption in Venezuela and the end to capitalism as we know it. That is why on Super Tuesday, I am going to vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden has the experience. Joe Biden knows the players. Joe Biden is thoughtful, caring, and an empathetic person. Joe is not a criminal. Joe is not corrupt. Joe is not cruel. Joe will put the interests of America before his own. He is the exact opposite of Donald Trump. I do not think that Joe is the best candidate. Truth be known, I was leaning towards Elizabeth Warren. However, for reasons that remain unknown, she has not been embraced by the voters of America, despite her obvious skills and passion. Joe shares the same values as a preponderance of Democrats. And most importantly, Joe appeals to the voters that Democrats must convince in order to win back the presidency. Joe appeals to both blue-collar and white-collar men in the Midwest. He shares their values, knows their struggles, and supports their concerns. Look, Joe is far from the perfect candidate. He fumbles his words. He's not always the most dynamic speaker. And he sometimes gives me douche chills when he fumfers on the debate stage. There's also the issue of his age. However, on that issue, I have some personal experience. I saw Biden in person on 2 separate occasions, once in October in Las Vegas and another time in January here in Los Angeles. And both times, his speeches were just, However, afterwards, when the speech was over and the crowd rushed around him to shake hands, take pictures, and talk, this guy came alive. He was in his element. He hugged people, he laughed, he smiled, and he was amazingly energetic. Look, Joe will undo the damage that Trump has caused. Joe will restore international trust in American foreign policy. Joe will not cozy up to murderous dictators. Joe won't lie every day to the American people. Joe will let children out of cages. Joe will not ask Democrats to give up their health care provider. Joe will not support the PLO. Joe will not take away a woman's right to choose. Joe won't call America's generals fucking babies. Joe's Secretary of State won't call him a fucking moron, and his Chief of Staff won't call him an idiot. On November 3rd, Democrats must not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. because our number one goal remains to get rid of Donald Trump. And that is why I'm supporting Joe Biden on Super Tuesday.